There are two ways to think about voter turnout and why voter turnout historically has been low and why even in 2020 it was still only about two-thirds of the eligible population. The first of these models is the rational choice model. And what it basically is doing is using rational choice theory, this idea that everyone behaves in a rational way, which just means that we want to maximize our utility, get the most out of our actions. And we take that and use that to look at voting. Turns out that if we do a sort of basic cost benefit analysis, voting doesn't make a lot of sense rationally. Voting costs a lot. And I don't mean that you actually have to pay to vote, right? Poll taxes are unconstitutional. But it takes time, right? Typically, you have to go to the polling place and maybe even stand in a line and wait to vote. And then you actually have to fill out the form. And if you're in New York, you have to run the bubble sheet through the Scantron machine. And, it takes time. It also takes time to learn about the candidates and know where to vote and all that. It can cost money. And I don't mean it literally costs money. Again, you can't be charged money to vote, but you might have to drive your car to your polling place or do an extra MetroCard swipe. You may miss work and lose wages. Now, there are laws in many states that allow you to get paid your hourly rate for a certain amount of time to go vote, but those are only under certain circumstances, and you have to know and request that. And it's not like automatic to get that. So you might lose money, or again, might cost mileage, gas, a MetroCard swipe, what have you. And it takes energy. There's an cost to it in that it takes a lot of energy. You have to know when and how to register to vote. You have to know when and how to actually vote. In states with voter ID laws, you have to make sure you have the proper voter ID. You have to learn about the candidates. And people are cognitive misers. We don't want to know more than we want to know, right? I mean, if you studied for the midterm exam using the study guide, what you probably then didn't do is learn a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't on the study guide, because why would you? We're cognitive misers. We are rationally ignorant, right? We just want to maximize how much utility we get for as little cost as possible. So learn as little as we can to get the most out of it. So voting costs a lot, but there's virtually no concentrated benefit. The benefit is very diffuse, right? I mean, like democratic responsibility, maybe. And, we've talked about how elections are the way we can hold our agents accountable and prevent agency loss. So, that now, and maybe that feels good that you're helping prevent agency loss. But does your single vote make a difference? Almost definitely not. But as you'll see in one of the readings, a single vote has made a difference before. And let's face it, if absolutely no one voted, one vote would be the difference between 0 votes and a landslide victory of 1-0. The second vote, if it's for your opponent, makes it a dead heat. So you can see that while your individual vote probably doesn't matter, it kind of does. So still though, those costs are pretty clear and those benefits are pretty vague. So a better question may actually be, why do people vote at all? Why do 2/3 of people go out and be irrational and vote when there's a high cost and low benefit? That is not rational behavior. Again, rational in the economic sense of rational choice. People maximize their utility. And there's a couple different reasons. You might feel it's your civic duty. That can often relate back to your personality type. People who are more conscientious and believe it's their civic duty are very motivated to vote. There might be social pressure, right? Your peers might be like, why are you complaining about the election? You didn't vote last time around, the president rather, you didn't vote last time around. You don't get to complain. Or maybe you go into the office and everyone has their little I voted sticker and you're like, ooh, I didn't do that. And they're like, why didn't you do your civic duty? So there's often a pressure societally to vote. Even though your individual vote probably doesn't count, you're told it does, because there's that fluky chance that maybe in this election, it really will come down to one vote. And it has before, so it could again. So campaigns logically tell you your vote counts, and that can make people vote. People might invest personally in it. And by that, I mean, perhaps you donate to a candidate or you spend time being one of those clipboard people for a candidate, right? If you do that, you're already invested. You've invested way more than just voting in that candidate already. So you're going to want to see it through to the end. And maybe you have a personal stake in the outcome. This is somewhat rarer, but perhaps you're a lawyer who's going to be arguing a case in front of the Supreme Court soon. It's going up there and there's a vacancy on the Supreme Court. And whoever fills that vacancy might actually really matter for your case. And I use that in hypothetical terms, but I actually know someone who this was actually the case for them. So for them, they had a very clear interest in the outcome. But to an extent, we might all have some clear interest in the outcome, right? Student loan forgiveness. Only one candidate was talking about that. So in 2020, in the general election, not the primary elections. And so you have a personal stake potentially in having your student loans forgiven or in tax rates going up or down, right? So we may actually have a clear, tangible connection to a policy promise that a candidate is making, and we'd like them to see it through. So we might vote for them in hopes that that actually does happen and does help us.